Hey everybody, Jeff Antoniuk here. So we got a webinar going on, and we'll be starting in just a minute. We've already got 50 people on Zoom, and we're also doing this live on YouTube. So if you go to the YouTube channel, it's Jeff Antoniuk Educator. If you have some friends that didn't get into the Zoom, get the reserved spot on Zoom, they can watch it live on YouTube. So we're there right now. So I'll tell you what, I'm just going to take a minute as more people filter in here. I'm just going to play a little bit. One of the things we're going to be talking about today is the last Digging Deeper Jazz video I did last Friday. And it was about playing minor pentatonics over dominant chords to get sort of an altered sound. So I'm just going to play some blue bossa for you while we wait. A little elevator music with some minor pentatonics. Here we go. All right, that's our welcome music. So yeah, let's get going with this. This is our second webinar, and I'm glad you're here. We have 100 reserved spots on Zoom, but also people coming in watching this on YouTube. The idea is I want to dig even deeper. Those of you that watch the Digging Deeper videos know I like to take one idea, get very specific, very powerful with it. And the thing that I dislike about YouTube and doing those videos is there's no interaction. That music is about interaction, and teaching absolutely is about interaction. We have to have a conversation, right? So that's what we do, of course, at Jazzwire. That's what we do at Maryland Summer Jazz. Some of these other things I do, but I wanted to give you folks who watch these videos every week an opportunity to ask me some questions and that sort of thing. So that's what we're doing here today. So I tell you what, I want to see. I've got two of our team members here. I've got Jessica Deskin, who's our communication specialist. I've got Matt Cleary here, who's the operations manager. And I'm just going to check in and see if there are any questions, you know, especially about the topic of using minor pentatonics, but over a dominant chord, and not in the way you would think to get sort of a bluesy sound. Here, we're using it to get sort of an altered sound. So I want to see if there's any questions. Jess, is there anybody that has any questions on this so far?
Yes, we have questions about the overall use of the pentatonic scales and how to incorporate pentatonics into soloing.
So overall use and how to include pentatonics in soloing. So first of all, practice your pentatonic scales, major pentatonic scales, minor pentatonic scales. So you have to have the sound in your ear before they're remotely useful, right? So just get going with those. And so the video last week was exactly that. How to use it in this advanced way. Now, I would say the video last week, I said it in the video, is not for most of you. So I like the videos to be, you know, very much applicable to a lot of people at different levels. This one was at a higher level. So we're taking a particular sound and really moving it into an interesting place. So it is a more advanced approach. If you're new to pentatonics, do not do what I was talking about last week. That's taking it a whole different place. So the simplest thing would be when I'm playing blue bossa, as I was before in C minor, use the C minor pentatonic. So that's the first application. Then we can get fancier. Now I'm talking about years from now, after you're good with those basic applications, we can start getting a little fancier. But that's the way to go. The first thing is learn the scales and especially the sound. I'm not just talking about which buttons to push or which strings to pull, but really get the sound in your ears. So Matt, any thoughts, any questions from anybody here?
On the topic of practice, we have a question of how to structure practice sessions to get the most bang for your buck when you only have maybe 1 or 2 hours a day.
Got it. Yeah, how to organize our practice. And that's such a big question that I'm actually doing a workshop on it tomorrow. I'm doing some digging deeper online workshops. So tomorrow is the second in a series of 4 workshops I'm doing for 12 people. And what is the topic? I could have talked about a million things. I picked 4 things. How to practice is one of them. By the way, that workshop is sold out. If you're interested, for $20, we're giving the recording. So you could, after the fact, watch the recording. So if you're interested in finding out, the 1 hour answer to this very good question, just write us at diggingdeeperjazz@gmail.com and we can get that off to you. So how do we organize our practice? I have to hear you play, right? I don't know what your strengths are. I don't know what your weaknesses are. So of course, that's why we have to have the back and forth to have any sort of meaningful conversation. Okay, so that's the first caveat. I can't tell you right now. I haven't heard you play. The biggest thing that I know works for everybody, and this is one of the biggest things that worked for me personally, is divide your time between practicing and playing. Practicing and playing. They're 2 totally different things. So for me, if you give me an hour of time, without fail, I will practice for an hour and it won't occur to me to play. So what I mean is I'll practice my scales. I'll do my long tones. I'll do my harmonic exercises. I'll do my triad pairs. I'll do all the stuff that I'm practicing. I will practice. And I will not play a song. It doesn't occur to me to play a song. That's ridiculous. I love playing songs. But when I get in that zone, so I'm overbalanced as a practicer, and this is going back now 30 years, and I was underbalanced as a player. I was somebody, the analogy would be golf. I would go to the driving range and I learned how to whack that ball, but I never learned how to play the game of golf, right? So other students I have come to me and they play all day long, but they don't practice. So they can emote and they have all this, kind of cool emotional stuff, but they can't play in tune. They don't know how to articulate. They don't know any scales. So that person needs to play less, practice more. So what I say is it's about 50-50. So for every student I've ever had, including myself, if you divide your practice time 50-50, and whichever one you're wired to do, whichever one you love to do it first. Practice your scales, Jeff. Do that and then when the timer dings 30 minutes in, stop. I don't care if you haven't got them done. Stop already, put down the horn. All right, now what you need to do is play a song for 30 minutes. Play. Fixing that little thing is huge. That's a really, really big deal. So if everyone out there gives this a try and tries this for a week, 10 days, you're gonna notice huge improvement, I promise. By the way, this webinar is going to go about 45 minutes. So I love this. If we, keep having some good questions coming in, we'll just sort of keep rolling with this kind of stuff. Great questions so far. Jessica, who else do we have?
All right, so I had a few questions specifically about minor pentatonic over the dominant from Mariano, Randolph, and Nicholas. I'm going to try to combine them.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, besides playing the scales, what other strategies can you use to get them into your ear? And can you give examples of playing the minor pentatonic over a 5/7 chord, basically over the dominant, and making it sound decent? Their words.
So they want me to sound decent. That's kind of a tall order. Cool. So I think I probably already forgot the first part of the question, but how to practice this stuff. Well, let's jump to the second part of the question of how do we get this to sound decent. So I tell you what, let me do a quick screen share with you guys, so you can see the handout that people are referring to. So everyone should see this. And by the way, the Digging Deeper videos I do, they're every Friday. They come out on Facebook and on YouTube. If you send me your email address, we've got a mailing list of thousands of people around the world that every Friday they get the PDF of the week, they get a link to the video. It's right in your email. You never have to ask for it a second time. So please just write us at diggingdeeperjazz@gmail.com and we'll get you on that list. So here's the handout. And what the question was referring to is using a minor pentatonic over a dominant chord. So the sort of formula that this sheet talks about is when you have a dominant chord, in this example, G7, and this is a 2-5-1 progression from Blue Bossa. When you have that G7, I'm suggesting you can play a minor pentatonic built on the minor third of that dominant chord. It's a crazy relationship. It's an advanced relationship. So again, that's why for more of a novice player, don't even worry about this. This is not anything you need to be thinking about. Okay, so now what I've done is just that. Here's our G7 chord. I've written the B flat minor pentatonic over top of it. Look at that. That is what we would call a parade of wrong ass notes. Wrong ass notes, technical term. We have the sharp 9 and the sharp 11 and the sharp 5, the flat 7, finally some sanity, the flat 9, the sharp 9. So those notes are way out there. And so what I loved in the question was like, how do you make this sound decent? Because those notes all are, you know, very, very, a bunch of extensions. They're quote unquote wrong notes. That's not what they are. But yeah, any of those notes would sound straight up wrong if not played with intention. Okay, so why the minor pentatonic scale? Let's back up. Why did I mention, let's play these notes in the context of the minor pentatonic scale? The answer is, it's an awesome scale. I don't even think of it as a scale, frankly. I use the term because everybody else does. But it's like a little melody that's kind of waiting to happen. If I just play anything, anything you play, I was doing my best to not organize that in any way. It all sounds great and melodic. That's a whole nother question of why that is. So that's why we learn the scale. We could get into that. So putting these weird notes in a framework that's already melodic, meaning the scale, that helps. And now what comes next? And now, yep, it's up to you to make a good melody. That's what I work with my students on. That is what we do at Jazzwire 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, is we take all these harmonies and all these rhythmic patterns and all these melodic devices and learn how to actually put them in the context of making a melody. So let me do this. I'm just going to loop those 4 measures. So I've got my iReal Pro app here. I'm just going to repeat them. Loop them means repeat them. You're going to hear those 4 measures over and over. And when I get to that G7, I'm going to use only those notes that are there. And I tell you what, first time through, I'm not. First time through, I'll play it very straight so your ear can get used to what the basic sound is. And then second, third, fourth time through, I'll use those other notes. And you can hear how, if used properly, if used in the context of a good melody, they can sound pretty cool. All right, let me give this a try. I hope that was decent. So there was so much going on in my mind of voice leading and how do I connect the half diminished notes to the minor pentatonic notes. It's now getting to be the end of the measure with the minor pentatonic. Where do I resolve that to the C minor? So I'm thinking about resolutions. I'm thinking about all these things, but they all serve the melody. So that's kind of how this works. All right, Matt, what do you have for us?
So I have a question on YouTube now from Luke asking, what's your general approach to learning a standard and getting to a point where you feel comfortable enough to play through the changes?
Yeah, great question. And you know, again, I'm thinking about the workshop that we're doing tomorrow. This series of 4 workshops. The 4 workshops are all based on one song, and that's how I'm going to do these digging deeper workshops from now on. 4 different workshops, 4 ideas, but centering around one tune. We're doing Stella by Starlight. So the very first thing I do is learn to arpeggiate the chords. And this, I would assign this to a singer, I would assign this to a piano player or a bass player. So on the song Blue Bossa, can I play the arpeggios in time through that song? So it would be this. So that was the first 7 measures of the tune with kind of a substandard read there. The first 7 measures. So you should have, now I can't play harmony. I can't play a chord on the saxophone the way a piano player can, but I can arpeggiate the chord. So you should have heard the time. You should have even heard a little bit of feel in there. You should have heard the harmony. You should have heard the phrasing. You should have heard the cadences. So right there, just by playing simple arpeggios through the tune, I'm proving to you, would be the way to put it. I'm proving to you I know what I'm doing. And now when it comes time to solo, I've got all that information sort of ready to go. So now what do? I turn on the melodic switch and I start reordering some of those chord tones. So I would then get people to start soloing, doing chord tone solos. You're only allowed those 4 notes in each measure, 1, 3, 5, 7. When the chord changes, you have to change, different set of 4 notes. And that's the way to get going in a sort of mechanical kind of way, but that's how we start learning tunes. And again, I would have any instrument do this. Yeah, nice question. Nice question. Jess.
I had a couple questions about major pentatonic versus minor pentatonic and how those are used over a 2-5-1 progression, specifically over the dominant.
Yeah. Okay. So there's, you know, this gets to be really endless because the pentatonic sound is, like we said, it's so ubiquitous. It's so classic. We hear it in classical music. I was listening to Debussy this morning, Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun, pentatonic scale in there. Listening to Motown yesterday, pentatonic scale. Listening to Joe Farrell, one of the great, real unsung heroes of the tenor sax, pentatonic scale. It's everywhere. And also in cultures all around the world that have never met, we hear the pentatonic scale. So, right, how we use it in different settings. So let me do this. Let me put the handout back on the screen really quickly. And whether this is, because the question mentioned major or minor pentatonic scales. So here we see the B flat minor pentatonic scale. Here's the thing. So let me play it for you. B flat minor pentatonic. That is the same notes as the D flat major pentatonic scale. So I'm just going to play those notes, but start on D flat. So, okay, so B flat minor or D flat major. So that's called relative minor, relative major. Some folks with some music theory behind them will sort of understand that. And again, this is the kind of stuff that we're working on in the green community at Jazzwire, is this idea about relative major, relative minor. That's coming up. So one thing is, some people ask me, Jeff, you mentioned here on the G7, you're saying to play B flat minor pentatonic. Could you not have played D flat major pentatonic, which some of you will recognize is the tritone substitute? And the answer is absolutely, you could have done that. They're the same thing. Here's my thought. When you tell me to play major pentatonic, I think of particular songs. I might think of this for major pentatonic. So I've got that major pentatonic sound. So that was a Motown tune, Sugar Pie Honey Bunch, I think. When I think of the exact same notes, but now minor pentatonic, I think different stuff. Same notes, but how you think about those notes changes what you do. It's huge. So for me, a lot of people actually tend to have more going on with the minor pentatonic. When I say minor pentatonic, they're able to get that bluesy sort of sound. When I say major pentatonic, less so. Not sure why that is, but I've worked with a couple thousand people now, and that's what I know. So I know for people, this minor pentatonic is where they'll get the most traction quickest. Can you use the major pentatonic? Absolutely. Totally cool. Totally cool. All right. Matt, these are good questions.
So I have the question of, what is the one thing to practice daily forever for jazz?
The one thing forever for jazz. Okay, that's kind of specific. I can give you the good but useless answer, and I'll do that, and then I'll give you the good but powerful answer. The good but almost entirely useless answer is, okay, what's the one thing to practice? Let's say melody. I've already mentioned that today. When you can make a good melody, right? That's what people want to hear. That's what's memorable. So melody. Melodies imply harmony. A good melody has the harmony inside it. When I play this, that Charlie Parker melody, we could reverse engineer what the harmony is pretty easily. So a good melody has harmony, it has shape, it has time, it has groove, it may have repetition. Melody is it. And now that's absolutely inactionable for pretty much everybody out there. So it's a great answer. I stick by it. It's terrible teaching. Okay, so here's the powerful answer. What should I practice forever in jazz? The answer is, dude, I need to hear you play. Right? I could say melody, except for you're blowing into the wrong end of the saxophone. Talking about melody is not helpful to you, right? You may have a fantastic sense of melody, but you're way out of tune. Or your tone may not be appropriate, right? So there are 1,000 things that could and probably will come before my good answer. So I have to hear you. So I got to talk about Jazzwire. So that's what happens. So Jazzwire is my subscription website. We have 200 or 300 people from all around the world, 25, 30 different countries. And here's what makes Jazzwire different than absolutely everything else out there. When you come into Jazzwire, you send me a couple recordings of yourself. This is not a big deal. Do the recordings on your iPhone like tonight. You send those in to me, and now I know where you're at. Of course, it's a little nerve-wracking. I'm the only person that hears those recordings. And so I get to talk to you. I'm not talking to right now there's 600 or 700 of you watching this. Is there some advice that's going to be appropriate for all 700 of you? No, that's ridiculous, right? So the answer to that question comes when we have a relationship. And so how many private students can I have in a week? It's a small number. 5 is how many private students I have, frankly. On Jazzwire, hundreds. The way Jazzwire is set up, I've listened to every one of those hundreds of people, and I talk to them every day if they come on and post. So the answer is you have to get really good personal advice from someone you trust on this stuff. If that's me, fantastic. I'd love to work with you on Jazzwire. If you have another great teacher, ask them that question and don't leave until they give you an actionable answer. Not, oh yeah, work on melody. Good answer, but not that powerful. And now, as far as Jazzwire goes, I know it's hard to even imagine what it is. Jessica gives personal tours of Jazzwire, just a quick screen share thing. You can sign up for one of those. So if you're interested in doing a tour with Jessica, just find out more about what Jazzwire is about. In the chat, both on YouTube, I think it's sort of to the right of the frame. It's happening right now. And on Zoom, they'll put the address. You just go to this address, click on a day and a time, and you've got a schedule made. And the address is jazzwire.schedulista.com. But you'll see it right there. And if somehow you miss it, write us at diggingdeeperjazz@gmail. All right, Jess. Speaking of tours, Jess, what else do we have?
Well, on the topic, I think of learning a tune. I had three people ask, do you have any tips for how to keep your place in the form?
Yeah, keeping your place in the form of a tune. Okay, so one way is we could just count like a maniac. Don't do that. That's a bad use of brain power. Of course, yes, we have to count and we have to get rhythms right and we have to make sure there's 4 beats in a measure of 4/4. So yes, of course. But when we're talking about playing music, we want to start thinking on a deeper level than just counting little notches on a board or something like that. So remember when I was answered the question about how do I learn a song? This is a similar answer. Arpeggiating through. So a song has a couple aspects to it. It has the melody. So how do I learn a melody? The answer is listen to it 100 times and play it 500 times. Just listen. How do you learn some pop tune on the radio? How did you learn any song? You listen to it until it's stuck, right? So pick a song that you love that you'll be able to listen to a bunch, and there you go. So the melody is done by listening repetition and then by playing repetition. And of course, I'm holding a saxophone here, but I play bass, I play drums, I play a bit of piano, I play other woodwinds. So I've gone through this process on lots of different instruments. So there's the melodic part. But we have to know the shape of the song, the phrasing, how many measures are in, the song, all that kind of stuff. Arpeggiating the chord changes, what I just did earlier on Blue Bossa. So when I have my students, let's play the melody 5 times over. And then when I have them do the arpeggios in time, right? So now we're taking care of phrasing and time and harmony. So even though you're a sax player or a trumpet player or a vocalist and you can't sing 5-part harmony, you can do those arpeggios and get through it. So Maryland Summer Jazz, I need to mention that to you guys. Maryland Summer Jazz is a jazz workshop I've done for adult students, amateurs, semi-pros, all you folks out there. This is our 16th year. You've probably heard about this COVID virus going on. Damn it. So this year, just because of all the public health concerns, we're not going to do it in person. But the last 2 weeks of July, we're doing Maryland Summer Jazz virtually. So we're doing it on the Zoom platform. We've got our faculty of 14 people. We've got 8 or 9 super special guests. Before I jumped on here, I was texting with Branford Marcellus. Yeah, Branford is doing an hour presentation with us. And Jeff Coffin from the Dave Matthews Band. And Ingrid Jensen, one of the finest trumpet improvisers in the world. Rick Margitza from Paris. Matt Wilson, one of my favorite drummers. Wycliffe Gordon, trombone player. And I'm missing a bunch. I'm texting with John Patitucci later today, like that level. So I want you to be involved with Maryland Summer Jazz. This is the kind of work we do. And it's not just sitting on Zoom and watching a bunch of lectures. We're going to be playing together. There are ways you can play with me. You and I can trade fours in real time. We can do that. That's the kind of stuff we're doing. We have 20 spots left. We have 80 spots for Maryland Summer Jazz for the 40 for one session, 40 for the next. We only have 20 total left. So like, honestly, they could be gone this afternoon. So if you're interested, make your way to marylandsummerjazz.com. It doesn't matter where you're at in the world. For the first time ever, anybody can attend Maryland Summer Jazz if they have the time and the resources. And clearly you have the the need and the want. You're here listening to some guy talk about jazz. So yeah, if that fits for you, I'd love to see you in July. And and tying it together with that question, like, yes, this is the kind of stuff that we do. We pick 14 songs. We have the 14 songs picked that we're working with at Maryland Summer Jazz. And everybody is preparing by doing this exact work. So I'd love to do the work with you in advance so that we can do it together at Maryland Summer Jazz. Fantastic. All right, Matt.
Yeah, we have a question from Terry on YouTube asking, can you address pre-performance preparation? What do you prepare for a gig aside from practice? And is there a certain mental prep involved before going on stage?
Yeah. My wife's name is Terry, and I was concerned the question was going to be, why didn't the recycling get taken out yesterday? So I'm awesome that this is possibly a different Terry. Thank you. Yes, preparing for a gig. My approach is get really nervous and like all in my head about it and practice a bunch of stuff that's, yeah. So we're all human beings and like, that's honest. And I'm going to say 9 out of 10 pros that I know, I'm talking about like super high end pros, like this is a thing we think about. Professional athletes have the team psychologist, right? Olympians work with this. It's all that mental preparation, right? So it's a good, smart question. And the main thing I want to say is we are all human beings and we get crazy in our head about things and certainly judging ourselves against other people and why am I not better or oh my God, she sounds so fantastic. I don't want to take the next solo. And yeah, I have those thoughts plenty. So the best thing that I know is to be as strong as I can be mentally and physically. So strong physically, I mean, of course, take care of your body and feel good, but I'm talking about on the horn. So when I feel like I've been practicing good things, when I have these 9 songs to play on a gig, like, do I own those tunes? And here's the thing, the reality is lots of times I don't. Branford's going to tell you the same thing. He's now a guest artist with such and such symphony, and he got the music 3 days ahead of time. These things happen, right? And so does he wish he had 3 months and not 3 days? Yeah. Is he a pro? Yeah. And he's going to do great, but he would feel better with that 3 months, right? So my thing is be as prepared as possible. And then the mental thing is, for me, I'm keep reminding myself to be kind to myself and that I am not the only one sort of feeling this way and those, that anxiety. I'm not really wired for lots of terrible, awful anxiety, but of course I'm in my head like everybody else. So I try to remind myself what a gift it is to be holding an instrument, to get to make music, whether it's over the Zoom platform or with other human beings in a room, and try to be in the moment. All those other thoughts are outside the moment. Just try to be in the moment. And of course, that's where the best music is going to happen, is when you're in your body, in the room, listening to what's going on. It's a tall order, again, just we're all human and we all deal with it, but lots of good preparation. And of course, quality preparation, right? So many people that come in to Maryland Summer Jazz or Jazz Wire talk to me about, I've been plateaued for 20 years. I've sounded like this for 20 years. And then 4 days later, they sound totally different. Is it because I'm a genius? Excellent question. I am not a genius. I'm just a pretty good teacher, and I surround myself with other pretty good teachers, and we know how to get people moving, right? So you could try to do it on your own for another 20 years, or take a little bit of a leap, and I guarantee 2 weeks from now, you're going to be moving. So doing something like that sets you up for success, I think is a great way to go. All right, Jess, fantastic questions.
All right, this is a question from Ken. It's a bit instrument specific, but besides long tones, how do you suggest working on developing a strong, even tone throughout the whole saxophone?
Yeah, and Jessica is a fantastic singer, and she's played flute and stuff like that. So it's instrument specific in that it's saxophone specific, but any wind instrument has to do with this. I recently heard a story about a classical guitarist. I wish I could remember their name, but it's one of the top classical guitar players out there. And the story was, I think, that for a half an hour each morning, this person makes a cup of coffee and then sits down with their acoustic guitar and plays B to C very, very slowly, half notes or whole notes, and they go back and forth. And that's what they do. Then they play C to C sharp. And so and now why is that? Is that that has a lot to do with tone. So you wouldn't think, on guitar, you put your finger down, you pluck the thing makes a sound. Well, no, on all of these instruments, if you're an orchestral timpani player, tone, sound, right? So it's instrument specific, but I'm going to say it applies to everybody. How you play a key on the piano, you can get an ugly sound out of a $100,000 Steinway, or you can get a beautiful sound, depending, right? So it's technique, technique, technique. So technique, and each instrument will have their thing. So of course on saxophone, long tone. So the idea is we hold a tone out for a good long time. Harmonics are something we talk about with all the sax players on Jazzwire a lot. So there's lots of great harmonic exercises. And so it sort of takes advantage of the harmonic series on the saxophone and how there's so many ways over the last 100 years that people have figured out to do harmonic exercises. There's one that I like a lot that I got from a friend of mine, Katisse Buckingham, absolutely brilliant sax player and flute player in Los Angeles. And he showed me this back in January. I've been doing overtone exercises forever. And this is just sort of his little, his different take on it that I really enjoy. But it has to do with matching overtones. And it gets more specific at that. We won't get into it right now. But long tones, there's just no way around it. Do long tones. Again, is it possible to do long tones in an ineffective way? Oh, totally. Can you do yoga in a way where you don't stretch anything? Definitely. If you're, or can you lift some weights and get like almost no results? Absolutely. If your form's off, if the angles aren't right, you're doing nothing. So there it is. It's sort of a formula like, do you want to do nothing for 20 years or do you want to get it figured out and be running this week? So that's, again, why I'm really big on people getting help. It doesn't have to be with me. I would love to work with you, but just please find somebody to help you get those next steps. That's the most important thing. All right, Matt.
So we have the question from Ron asking, what strategies can you recommend for mastering jazz language and articulation?
Language and articulation. So yeah, those are two totally different things, if I'm understanding the question. So the first one, jazz language, to me, that's vocabulary, right? So jazz is literally a language. I'm going to go with that. And it's very historical. So we like to say things the way people before us said it. I really admire Charlie Parker. I really admire Rick Margitza. So I like the way they say things. And so I've sort of copied it and done that. So you do the same thing when you buy shoes. You saw somebody wearing some shoes and it's like, I like those. Or you see a pair of shoes and you may think, I'm not getting those. I've never seen anybody wear anything like those. They're ridiculous, right? So we're always referring back to what came before. Or there's this super brave haute couture person who wants that thing that no one has ever worn. And okay, that's a different way to do things. So developing vocabulary. So that's one of the biggest things I do in my teaching. That's one of the biggest things we do at Jazzwire. I recorded 3 of the video lessons today for Jazzwire this week, and each one included bits of vocabulary appropriate to not only the level. So there's the green community, the novices, the red community, the intermediate folks, blue community, like semi-pro folks. They're working on 3 different songs that are level appropriate. And then I introduced vocabulary specific to the level, specific to the song. So that's where it gets powerful, right? Because I know these people. I know all these people. So learning vocabulary, you've got to do it. And again, can you do it wrong? Yes. Should you make a 2-year-old infant memorize Shakespeare sonnets? Well, it's a great idea to memorize some Shakespeare, but it's not level appropriate, right? So of course you wouldn't do that. So you could decide, wow, I love this Oscar Peterson lick, but is it the best thing for you right now? The answer is almost certainly not. Given the hundreds of thousands of licks out there, what are the odds of you picking the right one for today? Minuscule, right? So that's why getting some help is so good. The next thing was articulation. Huge. So now this is a whole other thing. When people come into Jazzwire and when I listen to you play, I give you an evaluation of your playing based on 15 items that I determined are going to be good for adult students. Articulation is top of those 15 things. Articulation is what makes us swing or not. What makes us groove or not? What makes us sound like a legit jazz musician or not? It's how we enunciate with our instrument. So it's definitely, how I tongue, literally using my tongue and my airflow and all that on the saxophone versus a piano player and how they bring out the articulation there versus a bass player. So the articulation styles are all the same. When you want to play bebop, here's 4 rules to follow. And there is a Digging Deeper video I did on articulation with those 4 rules. So yes, paying a ton of attention to articulation. And In my experience, there are some people, just like some people are good with language. My son is good with language, and he just kind of is able to pick things up and mimic things. My son is playing saxophone, and he doesn't want to hear about saxophone from me. And, so we don't actually do that. But from hearing it, he mimics things. So like I've heard him mimicking Sonny Rollins and then mimicking Joshua Redman and then mimicking Michael Brecker. He doesn't even know what he's doing, but he can do it. So that's a little bit rare, actually. In my experience, I'm going to say 99 out of 100 people that come to me need to be taught the mechanics. And I was that guy. I wasn't able to mimic, not knowing what it was. I'm somebody that has to know what are the rules, what are the mechanisms, did I get it right or not? Okay, here it is again, did I get it right or not? That's most of you. So I love the question about articulation and realizing it's a thing. I'm going to say it's one of the biggest things that you got to work on. And I'm further going to say you're almost certainly going to need some help with it. All right. I've lost track of whose turn it is. Jess, let's have it be your turn.
All right. So this is a specific question about the major and dominant scales. This is from Cliff. If you were playing over a piece that is moving back and forth between a major and a dominant scale, say F sharp major and A7, are there particular minor pentatonic scales that would work over both? Can you play one scale over those changes that could make the sound bounce between a bluesy sound and altered sound?
Yeah, and so it entirely depends on the chord changes. So I think that example was, let me see if I got it right. Was it F sharp 7 and A minor? Let's say it was, even if I got it wrong. And that's sort of an atypical chord progression, but F sharp 7. So the first thing is, well, what's the key signature of that? There's a bunch of sharps in there, 5, 6 sharps, right? F sharp 7 going to A minor. There may be no sharps in there. So that's a big difference. So they're really almost polar opposite keys. So now the question is, but you have that in front of you. Here's the chords to play over. Like it or not, you got to figure it out. So, so when we want to start, so the question is, what minor pentatonic, what pentatonic may work? The answer may be there ain't one. So sometimes that's true. There's enough dissimilarities between the keys that it won't work. But every once in a while we can find one. So the first thing to do is look for common notes between chords. Let's say between the F sharp and the A minor. What's the third of F sharp? An important note. So what is that note? It's an A sharp. Is there an A sharp in A minor? The answer is hell no. Not only no, but hell no. That's going to be a crabby note to play. So, okay, well, that's not a common note. So we start going through, and are there 2 or 3 common notes? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then the fun thing is when you get 2 or 3 notes, you start looking and seeing like, is this part of a pentatonic scale? I know, maybe. So in the question was also that idea about maybe playing bluesy. So what does bluesy mean? So for some of us, we have pictures of, Smoke in a bar and B.B. King playing the blues and all that. Yes, it's an emotion. Yes, it's a picture from a movie, but the blues also has, real theory, real teeth to it kind of theory stuff. A lot of people would say a blues sound includes a minor third over a dominant chord. So on that F sharp chord, what's the minor third? An A. Oh, now we have a common tone. So now we start searching a little bit. So, again, this idea that all of us, myself, all my peers, great musicians, we did most of our development searching in the dark. Maybe I had one lesson a week, and almost certainly we didn't talk about the stuff I wanted to talk about, right? So mostly I was just searching with other friends of mine who were searching, and we're just a bunch of knuckleheads trying to figure it out. And every once in a while, lightning would strike and I'd figure something out, and I'd keep doing that, and I'd try to figure out the next thing. For the adult amateurs that I work with here, maybe that's not the most efficient way to do it. So that's what I love doing on Digging Deeper, is giving you guys these powerful little moments. I keep thinking back to, man, how did I learn this thing? Or what finally resonated with me for playing altered or whatever it was. So, trying to find those moments and sort of present them to you guys. So but that's a good way to think about it. Looking for common notes. And when you get some common notes, does that point you towards a pentatonic scale? Well, I tell you what, we've got like a minute left. So let's do this. Let's take one last question. And before I do that, I want to thank you so much. So many of you are watching the Digging Deeper videos every week, every Friday. I love that you tune into them. I love that it helps you. I just got an email today from a high school teacher that uses them in their high school. I was talking to a college professor that uses these things in their classes. I never expected any of that. The folks that I really love talking to are the adult amateurs, the semi-pros, and giving you some good tools to move ahead. And then I started getting dissatisfied because it's like, but I don't know how you're using this information. It would be possible for me to put this information out there and that it gets used upside down, or the wrong person's using it, or somebody takes something I said really seriously, but it's not the best advice for them. So that's where Jazzwire came from. So I'm just going to give you that last little thing, that if you want to do a tour with Jess, jazzwire.schedulista.com, or write us. And I'd love to work with you there. It's, if you're committed enough to watch this webinar, you're committed enough to do what we do at Jazzwire and really put some teeth to what you're doing. So Matt, let's take a last question.
Okay, this is a pretty interesting one, I think,
Cool.
from Rick asking, how would you approach a tune like All Blues or Footprints that's in 3/4 or 6/8, where eighth note 4/4 lines don't work?
So essentially, how do we play in 3/4 where 4/4 lines don't work? So yeah, so I could generalize it and say, how do we play in any odd time signature? How do we play in 5/4? How do we play in 7/4? How do we play in 13/8? Okay, so anything that's not 4/4, the presumption was, I know how to play in 4/4 a little bit, and none of that stuff fits. Yep. Okay, so there's a number of ways to go, but it's familiarity, right? There's nothing universal about 4/4. If you go to Eastern Europe and listen to the Bulgarian women's choir, they're not in 4/4 most of the time, right? So if you listen to lots of West African music, the pulse may be in 4, but the subdivisions are something else. So 4/4 is just something you know better than other stuff. So the biggest thing is you need somebody forcing you to play in 3/4 or 6/8 or 12/8, right? So you need to be in a framework where that happens. And now we get talking about what we do there. So I'll just give you a quick little framework that I really love, and it's called parent rhythms. And so in 4/4, if we're thinking about a jazz tune, 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, take the A train, and already I'm clapping on 2 and 4. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Killer Joe, or whatever it is. 2 and 4. And when someone starts clapping on 1 and 3 at the concert, and you know how you look at that person, first of all, like you're physically ill because they started clapping on 1 and 3. You're wondering what's wrong with them and what's wrong with their home life, and there's something wrong with that person clapping, right? Okay, so the parent rhythm of swing is 2 and 4. 1, 2, that's where it feels good, right? Now, does that mean the sax player plays on 2 and 4? Nope. Does it mean the drummer hits their cymbal on 2 and 4? Nope. Does it mean we comp on 2 and 4? Nope. Well, so what's the big deal with 2 and 4? We feel 2 and 4. In the whole jazz band, there's one place where 2 and 4 may happen, and that's on the drums. And in those 9 instruments, all those drums and cymbals, there's one that might be playing 2 and 4, and that's the hi-hat. So we feel 2 and 4. We don't play 2 and 4. Okay, so in every style, every time signature, there's a parent rhythm. So in 3/4, you got to know the parent rhythm. So what's happening is you're bringing your view of the universe, 2 and 4, and trying to smush that into 3. It doesn't work, right? So your view of the universe does not fit the universe you're now in, playing all blues, a classic 3/4 or 6/8 song. So you need to learn the parent rhythm of 3/4. Then you need to practice the parent rhythm of 3/4, and then you need to play it a bunch. And you need to be in a band where the drummer understands that, because if you understand the parent rhythm, but the drummer and the bass player are struggling as you are, they're going to be creating this really goofy thing that's not working. They may literally have 3 beats in a measure, but it feels backwards. You can't even tell where beat 1 is. You've had this experience. I had this experience as a younger player, that I didn't know what the hell was going on, surrounded by people that don't know what the hell's going on. And it's like the blind leading the blind, right? So that's what we do. And by the way, Maryland Summer Jazz, when we get together as a group, this is what we talk about, right? We talk about what is the drum part for 3/4? Where should the hi-hat be? How do we comp in 3/4? How do I articulate in 3/4 different than 4/4? What is the parent rhythm? Where do I? And so when the whole band gets feeling that, and by the way, this will take exactly 7 minutes to do. It's not a big deal. Wow, now we're connected moving forward. Here's the thing. Now we go on to a funk tune. What's the parent rhythm of this funk tune? Now we go on to this Afro-Cuban tune. What's the parent rhythm? Now we do a Brazilian samba. What's the parent rhythm? So when we decide where it is we need to feel it in our body, all of a sudden the other stuff comes later. So in the question, I think there was the presumption of my rhythms don't fit. And that's true. We need some 3/4 rhythms. But I went a level deeper and said, before rhythms, your understanding of the universe doesn't fit. So we need to understand what universe we're in. And then you're going to see actually rhythms start showing up that deal with that new parent rhythm. You notice I haven't told you the parent rhythm? I'm going to tell you the parent rhythm. 2 dotted quarter notes. So we're doing 3/4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and 2 and a 1 and 2 and. That's the parent rhythm for a jazz waltz. So many jazz drummers will do boom, ding, ding, boom, ding, ding, boom, ding, ding, like it's a Strauss waltz or something. And that's not swinging. It doesn't have any energy to it. It doesn't have that jazz feel. We need syncopation. So 1 and the end of 2. So someday my prince will come. Ba, ba, boo, ba, boo, ba. So you're feeling 1 and the end of 2. When you understand that's what you should be feeling, you're going to notice, oh, wow, Victor Feldman is comping that. I think that's who is on the Miles version. When you listen to any great jazz waltz, Toots Thielman's playing Bluesette or whatever it is, or Freddie Hubbard playing up jump string, listen to the bass, listen to the comping, listen to the ride cymbal. You're going to hear 1 and the end of 2 a bunch. All right. I've gone off the deep end here. We've gone over a little bit. I want to thank everybody for being here. The last webinar, I think we had 600 people. So, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope everybody's staying safe and staying sane. And, if you have a little bit of extra time now, just with all the craziness going on in the world, I hope you spend a little extra time with your instrument and just sort of investing in yourself for this stuff. So I'm so glad. I hope I'll see you every Friday coming up with Digging Deeper. And for those of you that want to really take this, to another level, Jazzwire for sure. So I'd love to have you sign up for Jazzwire and Maryland Summer Jazz. As I said, there's hundreds and hundreds of you out there. I think this morning we had 22 openings. So make your way to Maryland Summer Jazz pretty quickly. We have 2 4-day sessions, July 15 through 18. And then July 22nd through 25th. And we also have possibilities for people who want to just observe. So you'll just be, kind of like this webinar. You'll be observing all the classes, all the faculty. When Branford or Wycliffe or whoever is talking, you'll be there doing that. When I'm conducting a combo class talking about parent rhythms, you'll be there observing that. All the electives, all the master classes. And so you can do that sort of for a day at a time. If it's, if it's something time-wise that's difficult or you don't have the resources, just sign up for one day. We can do that too. All right, thank you so much. We're going to do another webinar every 3 or 4 weeks. I want to do this and just catch up with people and find out what is interesting, where your challenges are. To me, this is the fun part about teaching and doing this stuff at all, is interacting with people. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the week. I've got a cool video for you coming out on Friday. All right, everyone be well. Thank you to Matt. Thank you to Jess. Take care. Bye-bye.